Vishwandarpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyannijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahirivod Bhutan Yatha Nidraya Yasakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Gurumurtaye Nama Idam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktin cha Tatputra Parasharam cha Vyasan Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padma Padanja Hastamalakanja Shishyam Tantotakam Vartikakaramanyan अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यै सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रियब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ I welcome you all to the 23rd class of the Fundamentals of Vedanta series. We have been looking into the question of how an adhikari becomes an adhikari. And we said that the adhikari has to meet 3 criteria. The adhikari must be a mukshuhu. The adhikari must be a jiknyasuhu. And the adhikari must have certain qualifications. So how does the adhikari become a mumukshuhu? By discovering the problem of samsara, by discovering that the struggle to gain purnatvam through the first 3 purusharthas, arthaha, kamaha and dharmaha, is never ending. It is impossible to gain purnatvam by a pursuit of these. Then this person begins to question, is there any other way that I can gain this purnatvam that I am seeking? And when one comes to this point, the Veda Purva tells him that what you are asking for, I cannot give you. And for this, you need to approach Vedanta because you are seeking moksha. So this person becomes a mumukshuhu. And how does this mumukshuhu become a jigyasuhu? When he comes to Vedanta and he says that, how do I gain this purnatvam? He is in for a shock because Vedanta says you cannot gain this purnatvam. When he inquires into it, Vedanta tells him that you need not gain this purnatvam because it is your very nature. It is already accomplished. When something is already accomplished, then the only way you can accomplish it, if you think it is not accomplished, the only way you can accomplish something that is already accomplished is through knowledge. Because if you really try to accomplish it, then that will not lead you to the accomplishment. So Vedanta tells him that your position, your situation is very similar to the 10th man seeking the 10th man. The 10th man was seeking the 10th man because he was unaware of his own status of being the 10th man. and therefore he went in search of the 10th man. Similarly, you are unaware of your own status of being Purnaha. You are already Purnaha, and since you don't know that, you have taken yourself to be Apurnaha, and then you're going in search of Purnatvam. The Samanya Jnanam that I am is there. I know that I am, but I don't know who I am. The Vishesha Jnanam is not there. And because of this is the ideal condition for a superimposition, a mistake. I make a mistake about myself by superimposing what I am not. On top of this, I am. I take myself to be Apurnaha by superimposing the limitations of the body and the mind upon this I am that I don't know. I take myself to be Apurnaha, and then I go about in search of Purnatvam in the field of Arthaha, Kamaha, and Dharmaha. But whatever I do there, that is not inimical to the ignorance. The ignorance remains intact. Therefore, no matter how much I accomplish in the field of Arthaha, Kamaha, and Dharmaha, I remain Apurnaha, much like the broomstick being highly decorated. A highly decorated broomstick remains a broomstick. This highly decorated Apurnaha person remains an Apurnaha person in his own vision. The vision is not corrected. And therefore, it becomes clear when one goes through the inquiry that the solution is only Atma Jnanam, knowledge. When one comes to this point, one becomes a Jigyasu. But then there are still unanswered questions about what is the knowledge, what are the means of knowledge. And for this, we did a detailed inquiry into the various pramanas. And we eliminated all the Laukika pramanas as incapable of revealing the nature of the Atma, because the Atma is the subject. It's never an object, but all the Laukika pramanas are capable of revealing only objects. They can only reveal the nature of objects. They can only inform me. They can only help in the production of knowledge that is related to objects, never knowledge related to the subject. Therefore, we eliminated all the Laukika Pramanas, including Laukika Shabdas, and then we came to the Vedika Shabda Pramana. So the Vedika Shabda Pramana, in this, the Shabdas themselves are the revealers of knowledge, are the means of knowledge that cannot be gained through any of the other means. And here too specifically we came to Vedanta. Vedanto nama Upanishad Pramana. So the Upanishads, the Vedanta, the words of Vedanta are the pramana for revealing the nature of the Atma. So now the Jigyasu comes to Vedanta. And how is this Vedanta employed? How is this Vedanta Pramana employed? During Shravanam. Consistent and systematic study of Vedanta for a length of time under a competent Acharya is Shravanam. And when this Pramana is employed, there's an inquiry that is done into the sentences of the Pramana, of the Shabda Pramana. The sentences consist of words, and the words have their associated meanings. So the sentences are revealing a certain relationship between the meanings of the words. And this relationship, this knowledge that it is the means for, that cannot be gained through any other means. So when this Pramana, Vedanta Pramana, is employed during Shravanam, over a period of time, consistently and systematically, we say there is the rise of Atma Jnanam in a qualified student. So this now brings up the question, why these qualifications? So for this, we go back to the first knowledge principle. When an appropriate and adequate pramana comes in contact with the prameya, then the knowledge takes place. This is the nature of knowledge and how this knowledge arises. So we have the appropriate pramana, that is Vedanta, but it has to operate adequately. There should not be any obstacles. And therefore, one needs these qualifications of the mind, because the qualifications are essentially the removal of certain obstacles. As we saw, the obstacles are malaha and vikshepaha, papam and preoccupation of the mind. The malaha makes one engage in sense pursuits. Or this malaha makes one engage in nishiddha karmas. On the other hand, the vikshepaha keeps the mind preoccupied. So as these obstacles are removed, the qualifications increase. And then what are these qualifications? Sadhana chatushtayam kim? We saw this. Nitya nitya vastu vivekah, ihamutrartha phala bhoga viragah, shamadhi shatka sampattihi, mumukshutvam cheti. So vivekah, vairagyam, shamadhi shatka sampattihi, and mumukshutvam. Now we started to look at each of these. What is vivekaha? Vivekaha is the ability to separate things that are intimately mixed up. Like the diamond merchant separates the real diamonds from the fake diamonds. So what are we separating from what here? Nitya vastu vivekaha. We need the ability to separate the nitya vastu from all that is anitya. So as we saw, in this entire world, things are always coming and they are going. Everything is arriving and departing. Nothing is stable. Nothing remains forever. From the smallest microbe to the biggest galaxy, every person, object, situation, or relationship is arriving and departing. So this one has to know, because it is not a wise thing for somebody to lean on an anitya vastu for one's peace, security, and happiness. We took the example of a bus ride where everybody has to go standing. Now let us say somebody brings a stool to the bus and tries to sit on the stool. As the bus turns around, this person is still thrown about because he is leaning on an unstable object. The same thing in the bus ride of life as well. One has to try to hold on to something that is firm, that is anchor, that's your anchor, that is always steady, reliable. So we said every anitya vastu has a nitya adhishthanam. If we take the world of clay pots, then clay is the nitya adhishthanam. In the world of gold ornaments, gold is the nitya adhishthanam. This is a law. Therefore, even in this anitya world, where everything is arriving and departing, there must be a nitya adhishthanam. The adhikari does not know what it is as yet, but he knows there should be a nitya adhishthanam, and I should seek that and lean on that for my peace, security, and happiness. So this is vivekaha. Then we came to vairagyam. Viragah iha swarga bhogeshu ichha rahityam. What is vairagyam? Ichha rahityam. Ichha means longing. So rahityam is absence of longing. Absence of longing for what? Iha bhoga and swarga bhoga. Why? Because one understands they are anitya. And it is a bad idea for me to lean on anything that is anitya, to depend on that, to lean on that, to cling to that. So this one understands that I cannot make this the primary goal of my life. An anitya vastu or acquisition of anitya vastus cannot be the primary goal of my life. If one has vairagya, if one has this understanding, so one doesn't structure one's life around the acquisition of anitya vastus, around the pursuit of artha, kama and dharma. So this is vairagyam. Vairagyam is also a certain objectivity where one doesn't superimpose subjective values upon objects and people. The idea that money has got security, money can give me security, is a subjective value because money is inherently insecure. And similarly, the idea that objects of the world can give me happiness, that's also a subjective superimposition. It is not objectivity because an object inherently doesn't have anything called happiness. If an object inherently had something called happiness, it should be able to uniformly give happiness to everybody all the time. And then the same object must continuously give happiness to the person in possession of it. But we know both of these are not true. The idea of when an object is acquired, when an object of desire is accomplished, at that point the mind becomes free of desire. The mind becomes free of the longing for the object, free of this craving for the object. And in that state of mind, which is a sattvika state of mind, my own Atmananda is reflected. And that is what I call happiness. And then I superimpose the idea of happiness upon that object. That is like the dog saying that the bone is very tasty when the bone doesn't have anything in it. So this understanding, this not leaning on the anitya vastus is vairagyam. Then we came to the next qualification, the shamadhi shatka sampattihi. So shamadhi sadhana sampatti ka. Shamaha, damaha, uparamaha, titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. These 6 qualifications are bundled up into one qualification called Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi. So Shamakaha. What is Shamaha? Mano Nigraha. Mano Nigraha. As we saw the last time, Nigraha means discipline, restraint, management. So discipline, restraint, management of the mind. As we saw, the mind has got involuntary thoughts and voluntary thoughts. Involuntary thoughts are world generated, or they may be vasana generated. Vasana means past impressions. Whereas voluntary thoughts are those that I ask the mind to go on a certain track of thinking, and that is called voluntary thinking. So the ability to ask the involuntary thoughts to vacate so that I can use the mind for voluntary thinking, this ability is shamaha. As we saw the example of an owner asking a tenant to vacate a rented apartment. If the tenant refuses to vacate the rented apartment, then the rented apartment is not available for the owner. And therefore, if these involuntary thoughts refuse to vacate the mind when I need it, then the mind is not available for me for achieving my own goals. So this qualification is not just necessary for spiritual pursuits. Even if one wants to accomplish any kind of excellence in worldly pursuits also, this qualification is needed. So this ability is shamaha. Then we came to damaha. Damakaha. Chakshuradi Bahyendriya Nigraha. Discipline, management, restraint of what? Chakshuradi Bahya Indriyaha. Discipline of the sense organs. Why is this necessary? Because when the sense organs contact the world, it results in world-generated involuntary thoughts. Now, many parts of the world are not problematic. The sense organ contact is not problematic. But then there are parts of the world that may be provocative, tempting, addictive, disturbing. So the sense organs are in uncontrolled contact with the world, then that can result in problematic involuntary thoughts that come in and refuse to vacate. And therefore, this restraint of the sense organs is important. This is damaha. The idea is that with shamaha and damaha, the mind becomes available. And then one should be able to channelize the mind into shravanam, mananam, nididhyasana. Then we looked at the third qualification, titikshaka, shitoshna, sukhadukhadi, sahishnutvam. So, shita, ushna, sukha, dukkha, adi, sahishnutvam. The ability to withstand fluctuations in life, because fluctuations in life are inevitable. As we took the example of the stress testing of a product. In engineering, we stress test a product in order to make sure that it can function even when there are fluctuations outside of the normal range of operation. In hotter climates, in colder climates, underwater, in dry situations, etc. One puts a product to test. The product should be able to withstand it. If not, if the product is not stress tested, then even on the smallest fluctuations, the product might fail. Similarly, if the human being if this adhikari doesn't have titiksha, then every small fluctuation will produce disturbances in the mind, which is not very conducive for study and contemplation. So the ability to withstand the pinpricks of life, the ability to withstand the opposites of life, like sukha, dukkha, shita, ushna, mana, apamana. Sometimes there may be praise, sometimes there may be insult. Labha, alabha. Sometimes there is profit, sometimes there is loss. So the ability to withstand all these fluctuations is called titiksha. As we saw, titiksha converts pain into tapas. It becomes a spiritual sadhana also. And the one who has titiksha, this person doesn't complain constantly or seek remedies constantly for every little fluctuation. He doesn't go about remedying things, because seeking remedies is also time consuming. And before the remedy, there must have been a disturbance in the mind which he cannot handle, and that's why he's seeking a remedy. So the idea is to strengthen a person, strengthen the adhikari, so that with every little fluctuation, he doesn't go about seeking remedies and he doesn't go about complaining, etc. So silently being able to withstand all these kinds of fluctuations is titiksha. And the idea is that with all this, one conserves one's mind. And the conserved mind is then directed into shravanam, mananam, and nididhyasana. So now let us come to the next qualification. And for this, you can refer to the PDF that I have sent on the WhatsApp. So the next is Uparamaha. Uparamaha. And this is Tattvabodha 133. So we will read that. Uparamah kaha swadharmanushtanameva. So there are two different definitions of Uparamaha that we will look at. The first one is from Tattvabodha. Uparamah kaha swadharmanushtanameva. So the word Uparamaha literally means withdrawal. Withdrawal. So withdrawal from what? So in this case, what Tattvabodha is talking about is that we have a tendency, in general, a human being has a tendency to do what one likes and to not do what one dislikes. And one may do what one likes, even if it's not the right thing to do. On the other hand, something may be the right thing to do in a given situation, but one may not do it if one dislikes it. So going by one likes and dislikes, ragas and dveshas, is not the right way to go about life. Because one may end up doing the wrong things and not end up doing what is right. So withdrawal from this tendency, withdrawal from adharma basically. This is the first step, withdrawal from adharma. And then what does one do? Swadharma anushtanam eva. And one does anushtanam, one pursues, one does that which is dharma, that which is the right thing to do in any given situation. So the likes and dislikes become subservient to dharma. They don't dictate what one does and what one doesn't do in life. What dharma dictates what one does and what one doesn't do, and one's own likes and dislikes become subservient to dharma. So then one gains a certain mastery over one's own likes and dislikes. This leads to a neutralization of the ragas and dveshas. Why is this important? Because these ragas and dveshas that we saw are the ones that are responsible for the mind to rush towards an object or away from an object. If there's an object of my like, then mind constantly tends to rush towards it. If there's an object of my dislike, then the mind is constantly worried about it. And therefore, one withdraws from the likes and dislikes, from adharma, and then does what is dharma. It leads to a more quieter mind because the ragas and dveshas get neutralized in the process. But then this definition is not as much in keeping with the word Uparama, which means withdrawal. So there is the other definition given in Viveka Chudamani, which comes next, that I have given in the document. So Bahyanalambanam vrittehe esha uparatihi uttama. Bahyanalambanam vrittehe esha uparatihi uttama. So I have split the sandhi when I am reading it. So here Viveka Chudamani uses this word called alambanam. So alambanam means support or a prop. So when I'm using a support, then that is called alambanam. So here it says analambanam. Analambanam means without taking support, without the support of what? Bahya analambanam. So without support of external objects and people, etc. So being without the support, being without the support of the external objects and people, in what context is this being talked about? Vrittehe, of the thoughts. Vrittehe, vrittihi means thoughts. Vrittehe means of the thoughts. So the thoughts being without this reliance, support of these external people, objects, etc. The thoughts need to have a subject matter. And that subject matter is essentially, you can think of it as being the alambanam for the thoughts. So the subject matter of the thoughts is not these people, objects, etc. Because that means extroversion. If a person is constantly thinking of objects, external objects and people, the person is extrovert. And this extroversion, an extroverted person, who's constantly thinking about all this cannot make much spiritual progress. Therefore, the thoughts need to have some other support, not the support of the external people, objects, etc. So there is a withdrawal of the thoughts from dwelling on all these external things. So this is Uparamaha. So one employs Shamaha and Damaha. So with Shamaha, one asks the mind to, the involuntary thoughts to vacate the mind. And with Damaha, one makes sure that problematic involuntary thoughts from the world are not generated in the mind. But even if one employs Shamaha and Damaha, then there still may be a tendency of the mind to go out, to rush outwards. So if one employs Shamaha and Damaha, some quietude is certainly gained, but the ability to maintain that quietude of the mind is Uparamaha. Because one should be able to direct this mind, focus it on something else that is important. So this ability to maintain this quietude, this poise, this composure of the mind is Uparamaha. A person who has this kind of Uparamaha can then give quality time to the study of Vedanta. So initially, see, one may start, when one starts off, one may be interested in many external things like movies or socializing, etc. They may, the mind may have a certain liking for all that. So the key to Uparamaha is not force. The Shamaha and Damaha, you can say that there is some employment of a certain restraint. But restraint alone is not enough. The key is development of a higher interest. Development of interest in something that is more superior, that is subtler, that gives a finer kind of joy. So when one discovers this interest in something superior that is able to give me a different kind of, higher kind of happiness, and what happens is that these other kinds of pursuits, they automatically, they lose their pull. So what happens is that there is really, you can think about it as being a two-pronged approach. One is that some restraint and discipline is required, and that happens initially. But then, once one has some discipline and restraint, Shamaha and Damaha, then as one cultivates the higher interest, which in this context is Vedanta, as one's interest in Vedanta begins to develop, as one sees the value of it, as one sees the beauty of the teaching, as one sees the immense value that it has to add to my existence, then these other pursuits, they automatically begin to drop off in some ways. One doesn't have to make an effort as much to drop them. Because the mind, the nature of the mind is that it tends to dwell on that in which it is interested. This is the nature of the mind. So the key thing is cultivating this interest. And then Uparama becomes almost natural. Think about this situation, that when we were children, then as a child, the mind used to rush towards an ice cream, a stick ice cream, for example. But then once one has grown up, that kind of a pull is no longer there. Why? Because one has grown out of that desire. One has grown out or one has grown out or grown out of the desire for this. Why? Because one has discovered some higher interests. So that is the key to Uparamaha. Then what happens is that the mind, once one develops this kind of an interest, the mind then automatically gets pulled towards Vedantic thoughts when one has free time, instead of going and rushing towards these other things that had previously attracted the mind. So this ability to maintain this composure of the mind, even in the presence of those sense objects. The shamaha and damaha imply a certain kind of restraint, a kind of shutting off from the sense object. But a time comes when even in the presence of the sense object, like somebody may be dangling this ice cream in front of you, but then it doesn't mean much to me. Even in the presence of the sense object, the mind still is able to dwell on the higher interest. It is available for study and contemplation. So this ability is Uparamaha. So now we come to the next qualification, which is Shraddha. So we will read this portion from the Tattvabodha first. Here also we will look at two definitions, one from Tattvabodha and the other from Viveka Chudamani. So this is Tattvabodha 135. So here it says, Shraddha ki drishi Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasah Shraddha. The student asks, Shraddha ki drishi. What is this Shraddha like? He asks. So Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasah Shraddha. Shraddha is Vishwasaha. Vishwasaha means a certain belief, faith, if you loosely translate it to English. So belief or faith in what? Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishwasaha. So this belief or faith in the words, Vakyadishu, in the words of Guru and Vedanta. So here it's talking about Guru and Vedanta. As we saw, Vedanto Nama Upanishad Pramanam. Dharma Brahma Pratipadakam Apaurusheyam Pramana Vakyam Vedaha. We saw this. So Pramana Vakyam. Vedanta is composed of these Pramana Vakyas. Vakyas that reveal the nature of the Atma. So one has to give a certain benefit of doubt to the words of Vedanta. And the Guru is reiterating the words of Vedanta. The Guru is not, here we are not talking about a Guru who has discovered something by himself. We are talking about a traditional Acharya here who is holding the Shastra as a mirror in front of you for the student to see one's own face. So the Guru is not saying something different from Vedanta. The Guru is reiterating what the words of Vedanta are saying and doing an inquiry into what the words of Vedanta are really revealing. So Guru Vedanta Vakya, in the words of the Guru and Vedanta, one needs to have Shraddha, this belief or this faith. But in Vedanta, this is not a blind belief. Because eventually this has to culminate in one's own understanding. See, unlike other areas or other systems where one is said that if you don't believe this, then so and so and all this, a lot of bad things are said. And here we don't talk about things like that. We say that a certain benefit of doubt has to be given in the beginning, because whatever is being said, one is not able to grasp it all immediately. But then one has to have a certain benefit of doubt that what Vedanta is telling me, what the Acharya, the Guru is telling me, is something that is very significant, something that is extremely important for me to know. So there is something that I don't know, and the Guru and the Shastra, Guru and Vedanta are telling me something that is extremely important for me to know. I am not able to grasp it at this point. All right, that is because of the limitation of my own intellect at this point. That is because of the limitations of my own qualifications. So instead of rejecting what the Guru and Vedanta are saying, one gives it a certain benefit of doubt. So let us look at the second definition of Shraddha, which follows. This is from Viveka Chudamani, verse number 25. शास्त्रस्य गुरुवाक्यस्य सत्यबुद्ध्यवधारणं सा श्रद्धा कथिता सद्भिः यया वस्तुपलभ्यते. So शास्त्रस्य गुरुवाक्यस्य सत्यबुद्धिः avadharanam. Satya-buddhi has to be there. Satya-buddhi means this is true. The understanding that something is true is Satya-buddhi. Satya-buddhi of in what? Of what? Shastrasya Guru-vakyasya. Again, in the Shastra, in Vedanta, in the words of the Guru, one needs to have an attitude that what they are saying is true. I may not understand it at that point, at this point. That is an entirely different thing. But the Vedanta has been, this teaching has been employed for ages by the Guru Parampara. And through this, they have attained Purnatvam, they have attained Moksha, they have attained this freedom from samsara. So what it is saying must be true, even though I am not able to grasp it. That is my limitation. And so I don't reject what the Guru and Vedanta are saying. If at all I have a certain disbelief, I hold my disbelief in suspension. I shelve it for the time being, saying that I am not going to reject this. Instead, I am going to pursue it. Instead of finding fault with the Guru and the Shastra, I try to see what is wrong in my own thinking, because of which I am not able to see what the Guru and Shastra are telling me. So this attitude where I turn this criticism to myself and see where am I going wrong in my own thinking? Where is this ignorance within me? Trying to trace that. Instead of finding fault in the Guru and Vedanta. This attitude is Shraddha. So Shraddha is this freedom from intellectual arrogance. Intellectual arrogance is a very big obstacle in the pursuit of Vedanta. Because as we talked about, the qualifications are essentially freedom from certain obstacles, malaha and vikshepaha. So the intellectual arrogance is such an obstacle. So in this context, I like to recollect one story. And this story comes from a different tradition, which is the Zen Buddhism. So in Zen, they talk about the story where there was a certain Zen master. And then a person one day approached this Zen master saying that I want to learn Zen. So he asked him for for him to provide some background about himself. So this person said, I am a professor at such and such a college, and then I have learned the Hindu scriptures, and I have looked into science, and I have read about Einstein. I have studied Descartes. I have studied Kant and Western philosophy and all of this. And then I want to do a certain comparative study of what you have to say. Perhaps what you have to say, it might add some value to my thinking. But I think that there are certain things that are wrong with Zen, and therefore I want to, basically, basically. Do some comparative study, etc. So he went on and on. So the Zen master told him, just wait for a minute. And he went and he got one kettle which had some tea in it. And then he said, have some tea first. And then he started pouring this tea from the kettle into this person's cup. So this person was also waiting, and then the cup became full. And then he started to continued to pour tea into his cup. And then he said, hey, what are you doing? You're creating a mess here. What kind of a Zen master are you? You're just continuing to pour tea into this cup. So he said, I am doing exactly what you're asking me to do. He said, I never asked you to pour more and more tea into this full cup. You're doing it by yourself. The Zen master said, no. You are asking me to teach you Zen. But your head is already full of all these ideas that you have brought from other places. Your head is already full. Now, if I pour this teaching into your head, what will happen to it? This is exactly what will happen. It will overflow. So the idea is that if one's mind is full of opinions and knowledge that one has collected from other places, and if one is here to evaluate Vedanta and do some kind of comparative study or find criticism in the teaching, etc., and whatever is being poured in, it will have no effect. It will just overflow. So the idea is that one has to approach this teaching with Shraddha and Bhakti. That this teaching has something significant. And I am willing to set aside everything else that I think I know. Because this is a pramana, it operates in an entirely different sphere. So this is Shraddha. Now the Bhagavad Gītā is critical of those who don't have Shraddha. And this is the next verse in the document that I had sent. So we will read that. Ashraddhadhanaha purushaha dharmasyasya parantapa aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. So Bhagavad Gītā, Krishna says this. Ashraddhadhanaha purushaha dharmasya asya he parantapa. So he's telling Arjuna, he parantapa. Asya dharmasya ashraddhadhanaha purushaha. So in this self-knowledge, this Atma Jnanam, asya dharmasya, here the word dharma refers to Atma Jnanam. It's a contextual meaning. So in this Atma Jnanam, one who doesn't have Shraddha, this person, ashraddhadhanaha purushaha, of these people, these people who don't have Shraddha, basically in Atmajnanam that Vedanta is talking about. He Parantapa, O Arjuna, Mam aprapya. Krishna says they don't attain me. Mam aprapya. Mrityu samsara vartmani nivartante. Meaning they return. They come back to what? Mrityu samsara vartmani, into this cycle, of samsara. They return. Samsara, mrityu samsara. This means that cycle of samsara that is associated with mrityu, death. They keep coming back. So there is no freedom from samsara for a person who does not have Shraddha. And then we have looked at a more technical definition of Shraddha when we dealt with the topic of pramanas. So let us recollect that in this context. So that is the next statement in the document. Upajivya pramana swatah pramanya jnanam Shraddha. Upajivya pramana swatah pramanya jnanam Shraddha. So in this, we should recall the third knowledge principle. Every pramana has self-validity, trustworthiness, reliability in its own sphere of operation. The eyes operate in the field of colors. So the eyes are the means, are the pramana for color knowledge. If I don't use my eyes, there is no way to gain color knowledge. Similarly, the ears operate in the field of sounds. So each pramana has got its own sphere of operation. And then what the third principle is also telling me is that each pramana has inherent self-validity, trustworthiness, reliability in its own sphere of operation. What will happen if we don't, we say that a pramana is not self-valid? Then what it means is that whatever that pramana reports, I'll have to seek confirmation from some other pramana. But then no other pramana operates in that same sphere of knowledge. And moreover, if I'm insisting that no pramana is self-valid, even the other pramana, whatever it reports, I'll have to seek confirmation from something else. This means that I can never get any finality in knowledge at all. So the only way to gain knowledge is to understand that the means of knowledge through which I am gaining the knowledge has to have self-validity. This understanding is Shraddha. If I don't give self-validity, if I don't understand that the means of knowledge should have self-validity, then I'm basically denying myself that knowledge in that particular sphere. I'm denying myself that knowledge. So basically, a pramana has to prove itself. The eyes prove themselves as a valid means of knowledge for colors. The ears prove themselves as a valid means of knowledge for sounds. So we have to let the pramana prove itself by employing the pramana. This is the only way to gain knowledge. Therefore, Shraddha is an essential prerequisite for any knowledge, transactional or spiritual, to take place. That is why the Bhagavad Gītā says, Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. The one who has Shraddha, labhate jnanam, jnanam labhate. Such a person who has Shraddha alone, such a person alone gains the knowledge. The one without Shraddha has been strongly criticized by the Bhagavad Gītā, as we saw. So this is the understanding of Shraddha in relation to pramanas. Now, why is it important? Because the Veda is a pramana. The Veda has a certain sphere of operation in which no other pramana operates. Pratyakshena yastu payona buddhyate enam vidanti vedena tasmat vedasya vedata. So the Veda reveals something that cannot be gained through any of the other means of knowledge. If I don't give the Veda self-validity, if I don't give the Vedanta self-validity, then I'm denying myself that knowledge. If I insist for proof, then that is like the blind man who was operated on. As we saw the story of the blind man who was blind from birth. And then later on, he was operated on by a doctor who said he should be able to see. But after his operation was done, he refused to open his eyes, saying, "Give me proof that my eyes will see. Only then I will open my eyes." And what did the doctor tell him? And the only way to prove that your eyes see is use it and see. Use the pramana and see if it does its job or not. There is no other way to prove it. So similarly, it is futile to ask for independent proof for what Vedanta is talking about. One has to employ the pramana and see if it gives rise to the knowledge or not that is fruitful to you. That is the only way. And therefore, Shraddha is an essential prerequisite, without which I am denying myself the knowledge that exists in that particular sphere. So this is Shraddha. Then we come to this last of the Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi, just Samadhanam. So we will look at that from Tattva Bodhaha. This is Tattva Bodhaha 136. I will read that. Samadhanam kim chittaikagrata. Samadhanam kim chittaikagrata. The Samadhanam kim? What is Samadhanam? So it says Chitta Ekagrata. So here Chitta refers to one's mind. Chitta Ekagrata. So the word Ekagrata is composed again of two words. Eka Agra. So Eka means one and Agra means in front. So there is only one thing in front of the mind. Only one thing. Which means single pointedness of the mind or concentration of the mind. Chittaikagrata. Single pointedness or concentration of the mind. So one can think about this samadhanam, concentration, single pointedness, at two levels. One is long term, the other is short term. So now consider the long term samadhanam. So we will take an example here. Suppose we are going on a long car journey somewhere. Then, in order for me to reach the destination, three things are required. Firstly, there has to be clarity about the destination. There can only be one destination. If I have multiple destinations, that will only lead to confused thinking. For example, if I plan a car journey, whether I'm not clear, let us say that I have to go to Bangalore from Chennai. And I say that I may go to Bangalore or I may go to Hyderabad. Or I want to somehow reach both places. Then it will result in a lot of confusion. The clarity of destination has to be there, number one. Second is a certain alertness is required. When I'm taking turns, then I have to ensure that is this turn that I'm taking really leading me to the destination or not. I cannot just take some random turns, speaking to somebody, oh, here is a left turn. By the way, I'm focused on this topic, so let me just take this left and we will see later. In this manner, one will never reach the destination. So there has to be a clarity with respect to the connection between what I am doing and my eventual destination. And similarly, I may take breaks during this journey. For example, I may stop for a snack break or a tea break or a lunch break, whatever. But then I don't confuse those intermediate stops as being my destination. There is this alertness in the mind that as soon as I finish this, I have to set on my journey again. So this is the alertness that has to be there. And the third is that there has to be an intent to reach their destination. That if there is, let us say, some pleasant looking wide road that is easy to drive on, I just don't go on that road, because if that road doesn't lead me to the destination, it might just be a huge diversion. On the other hand, if there is a road that is the only road that I am supposed to take that leads me to the destination, even if it is difficult to drive on, I know I should take that. I go on that road. So here, if I am doing these three things, clarity of destination, the alertness is there with respect to turns and intermediate stops, etc. And then if I have this constant intent to reach my destination where I avoid all kinds of diversions and then focus on a difficult path, if that is what I need to do, then I will reach the destination. So similarly in life also, there has to be a clarity of the destination or goal. So here the adhikari has to be clear that my goal is moksha, and that is this purnatvam. So before I depart from this body, I have to finish reaching this goal. That is the clarity of the destination. If one has too many goals, as we saw, even in the Vyavaharika life, even in this car journey, it can end up being very confusing. Similarly, one is trying to accomplish too many things, right? If one wants to be, even in Vyavaharika, wants to be a cricketer, and then also a violinist, and also be a swimmer, then perhaps this more likely than not, this person will just attain mediocrity in all the three things. It's like a jack of all trades. But if the person is really focused on one thing, and then rain or sunshine, he's working to attain that, then this person can achieve success in that venture. So similarly here too, moksha, purnatvam is the goal. This has to be very clear. Everything else one may pursue, but at the same time one knows it is not my end goal. So this brings us to the alertness that when I make choices in my life, then this person is evaluating this choice, and in relation to the goal, does this particular life choice that I'm about to make, is this in any way conducive to that final goal that I am seeking? This alertness has to be there. And similarly, one may stop at intermediate, there may be intermediate goals. For example, one has to make some money, right? And one has to raise a family. and have certain relationships, etc. But then one doesn't confuse those intermediate goals as being the final goal. Even when one is pursuing some intermediate goals, one has this final goal looming in one's mind that that is what I have to get to. Similarly, one has to have the intent to reach the destination. If there are all these diversions, something very pleasant that is attracting me, like this pleasant road that is a wide road, very easy to drive on. If that doesn't lead me to the destination, I drop it. On the other hand, if there are certain qualifications that I have to cultivate, if there's a certain sadhanas that I have to do, even if they are difficult, I work on it because they lead me to the destination. Therefore, this intent also has to be there. And all of this is a long-term samadhanam. Long-term single-pointedness of the mind. The mind is always like a compass. A compass is always directed towards the north. Similarly, this person's mind, the adhikari's mind, has this compass that is always directed towards the final destination, which is moksha. Even though in the intermediately I might go this way, that way, but he is aware of the fact that that is where I have to go finally. And then there is this short-term samadhanam also. In the short term, one has to be able to focus the mind on a single thing. With shamaha, damaha, and uparamaha, once one has attained a certain quietude of the mind, one has to be able to focus this mind on shravanam, for example. So, this again is a qualification that is not purely required for spiritual purposes. Even in material pursuits, if one has to attain something significant, then one has to have this short-term samadhanam, being able to focus the mind on the task at hand. And this is something that we are all capable of, actually. We are all capable of doing that. For example, if somebody is watching a thriller, then there is this serial killer in the thriller, and there's a certain detective. This is the climax scene. The detective has entered the home of the serial killer. Now, who is going to prevail in this contest? Is this detective going to die? Because the serial killer is very persistent. Or is this detective going to win? Because this detective is also very persistent. At this point, the movie has captured the mind to such an extent that one is really focusing on that climax scene. Every little move that detective makes or the serial killer makes, one is tracking it closely. Short-term samadhanam. Or if it is the last ball of a cricket match, right? And there are 6 runs to make. Who is going to win? We are focusing on what that bowler is doing, what strategy might he be planning, or where are they placing the fielders, or what is this batsman thinking, where is he going to hit, what is the commentator saying. So everybody, this nail biting finish, as they call it. In a nail biting finish, you're really focused enough that you don't even know that you're biting your own nails. So this kind of samadhanam everyone is capable of. But then, as we said, it depends on what the mind is interested in. So one has to be able to invoke a similar interest in the study of Vedanta also. Then the mind will naturally have this kind of samadhana, this kind of focus. It will naturally come because the mind naturally tends to gravitate to what it is interested in. So this is the short-term Samadhanam. And then the mind cannot just keep focusing, it needs breaks also. So there has to be a balance of exertion and recreation. Some break has to be given. So this intelligently balancing this and being able to invoke this kind of a short-term focus and always having the long-term focus, the long-term goal in mind, this is Samadhanam. So with this, we conclude the Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi. We have discussed all the 6 sub-qualifications. Now there is the last qualification, which is Mumukshutvam. I'll take a few minutes and we will complete that also, because we have largely discussed Mumukshutvam. Now this Mumukshutvam is a part of the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampattihi, but we hoisted it out of that and we discussed it in the very beginning, because we were talking about moksha as a purushartha. So there has to be a seeker of moksha. So we say that there has to be some manda mumukshutvam, some feeble mumukshutvam has to develop first before one can even become a jigyasu who come to Vedanta and develop the other qualifications. So this feeble mumukshutvam is the very first thing that has to develop. That is why we discussed in the beginning. But here it is one of the sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi. So we will read that. Mumukshutvam kim, which is Tattvabodha 1.4. Mumukshutvam kim. So moksho me bhuyat iti ichha. So moksho me bhuyat iti ichha. This is mumukshutvam. So here this ichha. Vairagyam was ichha rahityam, absence of ichha. Here it is ichha, a desire, a longing for what? Moksho me bhuyad iti ichha. Let this freedom be mine. Let the liberation be mine. Let moksha, the attainment of moksha, let it be mine. This kind of a longing has to be there. So longing for moksha, freedom from the sense of apurnatvam. Freedom from apurnatvam. And freedom from samsaraha. A desire for freedom from apurnatvam, freedom from samsaraha, a desire for that is mumukshutvam. So for one who has discerned the problem of samsaraha, the discernment of the problem of samsaraha is the discernment that the pursuit of artha, kamaha and dharmaha cannot lead me to this purnatvam. So this discernment of the problem of samsaraha has to be there for this mumukshutvam to arise, even if it be a feeble sense of mumukshutvam. Because one sees that one has been running on a treadmill, basically pursuing artha, kama and dharma. They have not given me this purnatvam that I am seeking. And therefore, I have to pursue something else in order to gain this purnatvam. One sees that there is jara, vyadhihi and mrityuhu. And there is no escape from jara, vyadhihi and mrityuhu. One will basically have to face mrityuhu at the end of their life. So before that, one has to try to gain this purnatvam. There is the story of a bird that flies high, and the bird lays a certain egg. And it flies so high in the sky somewhere that it lays its eggs also in the sky. And then as soon as the egg is laid, the egg starts to fall towards the ground. So the height of this bird is so much that the egg takes a long time to strike the ground. So in this time, the chick begins to develop inside the egg. And as the chick is developing inside the egg, it realizes that I am falling and I will dash to the ground one day. Mrityuhu. Mrityuhu is going to happen if I dash. And therefore it tries to free itself from this bondage of the shell. It tries hard. It's working hard. Even at a younger age, it begins to do this. And then finally, the chick succeeds in breaking this egg open, and before it dashes to the ground, it flies away. So similarly, once a person realizes that the Mrityuhu is there, and the entire life until Mrityuhu is a struggle, it is samsara. And I have to somehow be free of this, because if I don't reach this Purnatvam in this lifetime, then the process has to repeat and repeat again. Therefore, one tries to break free out of this bondage of this Apurnatvam. This kind of a longing for this freedom has to be there. That I want to break free out of the shell of Apurnatvam. This is Mumukshutvam. And then, as we talked about, it develops as a feeble desire in the beginning. But then this desire for moksha is a cannibal desire, as we have discussed. This Mumukshutvam tends to bubble up in my list of desires. It may be desire number 57 in the beginning, but then it gradually bubbles up. And then, being a cannibal desire, it eats up the desires below it. And then it bubbles up again. So this Pujya Swamiji talks about this like the big fish eating the little fish in a pond. So the bigger fish eat the smaller fish, and then the biggest fish eats all of them. Finally, the biggest fish alone remains. Similarly, when one sees that the desire behind all of my desires is this desire for Purnatvam, is the desire to be free of Apurnatvam. This is the real desire behind every desire. As one sees this, that desire tends to get swallowed up. Finally, there is only one desire that remains, which is the desire to be free of this Apurnatvam. But this may be one amongst many desires, but finally the other desires are also eaten up. Finally, only one desire remains, which is this desire for moksha. So this is the development of the desire for moksha. And then one from a manda mumukshuhu, one becomes a madhyama mumukshuhu, and then a tivra mumukshuhu. But this mumukshutvam has to be channeled into jigyasutvam, as we have discussed. This desire for freedom has to transform into a desire for knowledge. Otherwise, this mumukshutvam cannot really reach the destination, which is purnatvam. So this mumukshuhu must also become a jigyasuhu. And then one has to know that this jnanam can only arise from the pramana. So this jigyasuhu must become a shushrushuhu, as we had said. So desire for moksha, desire for freedom, has to transform into a desire for knowledge, jigyasuhu, and that has to come to the pramana and transform into a desire for shravanam. So with this, we conclude the discussion of Mumukshutvam also. And then there is a last couple of lines in Tattvabodha where it concludes this discussion. We will read that also. Tattvabodha 1.4. It says, that is at the end of the moksha description, moksha definition. It says, etat sadhana chatushtayam tatah tattva vivekasya adhikarino bhavanti. So this is sadhana chatushtayam. This is sadhana chatushtaya sampattihi. We've discussed all the 4 qualifications. Tataha, tasmat, through this, tattva vivekasya adhikarinah bhavanti. So one becomes an adhikari. One becomes an adhikari. These people who have these qualifications, let's say, such people become the adhikari. Adhikari for what? Tattva vivekaha. Tattva vivekasya adhikarinaha bhavanti. So this is how an adhikari becomes an adhikari. We have discussed that entire topic. Now there is a subtopic here as to how does one gain these qualifications. This is a subtopic that we will take up in the next class. With this, I'll conclude today. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, can I ask?
Sure, yes, please go ahead. Vishwanathan.
Yes. So maybe this is a repeated question. I'm not too sure. So probably you can clarify.
Sure.
Having understood the basic fundamentals of Vedanta so far, still, I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about others here. Still, mind is always focused on worldly objects. Still, look for something. Either make money. I have money, 2 crores, 3 crores I have. Still, I want to make another 7 crores. Looking for an opportunity. Or similarly, I can look for my promotions, getting so much of business for the company. And I want to be promoted to director to maybe become managing director. This is still based on your discussion today. Is it still a short-term samadhanam? And having studied the fundamentals of Vedanta, can we progress to the long term? Though the long term goal is moksha, purnatvam, we understood. But still the short term thinking or short term samadhanam is continuing. I don't know when will it stop. This is my first question. Okay, the second one, what you are talking about is on the Mumukshutvam. Whether with this approach, can we progress in life towards attaining or maybe gaining the moksha or purnatvam? This is the second question for me. Yeah, that's it.
So the idea is that once one has come to Vedanta Shravanam, right, and once one starts to see the defects of the pursuits of the first 3 purusharthas, and one starts to see that what I'm really seeking and what I really should be seeking is moksha, then this transformation gradually begins to happen. See, it is like a ship that is a giant ship that has been going in a particular direction for some time. It doesn't immediately change its direction. It takes a while to turn because the momentum of the past is there, right? So if one has been engaging in worldly matters for a long time and then one has become exposed to Vedanta, then the transformation doesn't happen overnight, generally speaking, unless there is some powerful prarabdha, which are exceptional cases. But in most cases, it is natural for this transformation to take some time. So for a while, one will continue to do what one has been doing, but one continues the Shravanam, and then one gradually gains more and more clarity, right? So this clarity of the goal that we talked about in the Samadhanam case, right? That single pointedness of the mind and all that, they are something that has to develop, and it takes time for that to happen.
Okay.
And once one has come to Vedanta, if one is pursuing it sincerely, then one is putting one's best effort possible, whatever time one can spend. You see, one tries to direct it in this particular direction, tries to do Shravanam, tries to think about it. as one makes a sincere effort, then one begins to, it has sort of like a rolling snowball they talk about, right? That it gains mass and momentum. So similarly, all of the things will follow. And basically, if one keeps doing the right thing, then the goal is also the goal. The goal will be attained.
Okay. The second last question from my side is, subset of this question.
Sure.
The long term is the moksha and then purnatvam. We are making an effort in this janma. Okay. And then you also talked about prarabdha karma. I do not know what are the pabams and punyams we have accumulated so far. So many births of recycle is going to take place. I don't know whether we are going to attain this moksha in this particular janma. But the class which you are attending through you, so will it have some imprints in my next janma to continue the pursuit of this goal in the next janma? Whatever the avatar or whatever the jivatma we are going to take place, will it have some imprints on whatever we are learning today and then focus on this mumukshutvam and moksha?
Yes. Basically, in fact, what we would say is that that it is better not to have a thinking where one postpones this to the next janma to begin with.
Yeah.
So basically, the idea an adhikari has is that I want to finish this off.
Correct.
Right? Now, in case due to some prarabdha, as you said, the task is left unfinished.
Correct.
Then Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gītā itself, he gives an assurance that once one has come on this path and one is sincerely pursuing it, right? Then it begins to override, in some sense, the prarabdha also. Because for this person, moksha is a priority. So even if the prarabdha would have dictated, let's say, an octopus janma, but if this person is so sincerely committed to this pursuit, then it begins to override. And then this person again gets a human janma where he can pursue from where he left off. In fact, in the coming topics, we will take up those verses from the Bhagavad Gītā also, and we will discuss that.
Okay. So I want to ask one more question if time permits.
Sure.
One is I've read not that much what you have read in Bhagavad Gītā, and based on others' experience, what they say here is conviction is very important. Conviction of one of the dharmas. At any cost, I will not tell lie. So Gita is also in some other chapter. I'm unable to quote from here because I don't have the memory to quote. He says that if your conviction on a specific point on dharma, you'll be able to reach me faster rather than the other person who is not having any conviction. Is it true?
Generally, we say that with regards to these qualifications also, right? There may be certain qualifications that really shine in a person. Or that may outweigh the other qualifications. The other qualification may be very feeble to begin with, but some particular qualification one has in a good measure. Then they talk about, that itself will help in the development of the other qualifications also.
Okay.
So what you are saying, it has some validity. The traditional teachings also back that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think I've denied other people to ask question now. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, we are already kind of past our time because I took the liberty of taking a bit out of the question and answer session so that we could complete the topic today.
Yes, sir.
So we will conclude now, and then if there are any pressing questions, kindly send it on the WhatsApp group, and we will take that offline.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Satyan ji.
Hari Om.
Thank you so
Hari
much.
Om. Hari Om.